What's going on, everybody? Patrick Auger here. Got my man Drake Riggs here at the Body Lock, and we're talking about something that's a little bit of breaking news here. If you missed it, Dana White did do a Q&A with the fans on today, Tuesday, January 5th, and essentially, when he was asked about Justin Gaethje's next opponent, he said it's looking like Charles Oliveira. Drake, what do you think about that matchup, and do you think it's going to happen?
Matchup, love it. Stylistically, that's amazing, right? I mean, any Gaethje fight is amazing. Any Oliveira fight these days, in this recent stretch. I mean, usually his whole career has been pretty fun. Just he's winning a lot more impressively these days. So, yeah, awesome matchup. Those guys are perpetually exciting. Will it happen? Hard to say. But, yeah, as for a fight, love it. Think it's great. Is it the right one to make? I don't know, because I think that Oliveira has totally earned his title shot, and things are obviously up in the air with the fight coming up, the rematch between Poirier and McGregor, and then what exactly is going on with Khabib, which I think he's still going to stick to his guns, so let's get the title off of him, right? And then give Oliveira somebody, anybody. If you want to do Gaethje, fine. I just want to see Oliveira get a title shot. That's pretty much my thing right now, but as a fight, that's awesome. Yeah. Will it happen? I think it's really hard to say at the moment, but if that's how things are leaning, okay. Yeah. I mean, I'll give it a 65. That's my initial feeling then.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'd put it around 70-75% actually, just because if you look at the other matchups that are already booked in the division, right? Who else are you going to put Gaethje and Oliveira against except each other? And as you mentioned, I am all for Oliveira getting a title shot, especially after that performance and being on an 8-fight win streak. But, during the Q&A, Dana essentially said that Poirier versus McGregor, while not for an interim title or the actual lightweight championship, because he hasn't talked to Khabib yet, said that the winner of that was going to get the next crack at the belt. So it's possible if Khabib ends up, sticking to his guns, which I agree, I think he probably will, then you end up getting the winner of Poirier versus McGregor going against the winner of Oliveira versus Gaethje or Chandler versus Hooker or something of that nature. I'd lean more Oliveira versus Gaethje, especially if Oliveira wins. But to the matchup itself, again, stylistically, this is great. We didn't get to see, Khabib versus Tony. That was a matchup that we all, really wish we could have seen. I feel like this is a matchup that if it got canceled, I wouldn't necessarily put it on the same level as that stylistically, but it's up there and it's very close. I mean, you've got a slick submission artist who has just looked phenomenal his last several times out versus Gaethje, who was on a crazy tear against Tony Ferguson, Edson Barbosa, James Vick, Donald Cerrone, who a lot of people overlook, but at lightweight, Cerrone is still a big name and has done very well in that division, only really losing to Ferguson and Gaethje when he dropped back down. So, it's been one of those things where I think Gaethje needs to fight in and around that number one contender spot, right? Maybe needs another win or two against somebody that's not Khabib. It's not out of the question to think that he should be in that title picture and that he could win. So Oliveira versus Gaethje is definitely an unofficial contender bout, even if he's not saying this, right? So I don't know. In terms of this matchup, Drake, who do you think has the edge here?
Oh, it's tough, man, because you go this hyper red hot momentum that Oliveira has built up, especially after this last victory, and then Gaethje, who momentum halted, had plenty going into it. But he's one of those guys who, as we saw from his first two losses, completely changed him into a different guy, and then a loss as brutal mentally, as this one is to suffer, just getting outclassed really for the full fight for the most part, right? Yeah, I can't imagine he won't come back even better, or at least change up some things and improve in some manner, and want to just be more driven, will be more driven going into this one and everything. So it's kind of hard to pick from that side of things. And you got to look at, yes, Gaethje, the big question mark or the big kind of supporting defense of him having a good shot against Khabib was that wrestling in his back pocket, the takedown defense that, okay, we imagine it should be there, but of course, Khabib's Khabib, doesn't matter who the fuck you are. He's going to get you down. Will Oliveira, a very, very, very good grappler, not so much wrestling sambo based as, Khabib, of course, not many people are. Will he be able to still get Gaethje down or want to try to, even in the first place? That is still a question mark. I don't think, Gaethje losing to Khabib the way he did and getting taken down really answers that question of how good Gaethje's takedown defense truly is, right? Because, again, it's Khabib, one-of-a-kind guy for this to happen to you against. So that's a big thing. Of course, if it goes to the ground, Gaethje in all sorts of trouble in terms of submission threats. He'll probably get caught again. On the feet, super incredibly interesting. They both have very diverse skill sets and arsenals, plenty of weapons to play with. Gaethje has proven to be more powerful, but Oliveira can cut you up. He's just got, I think, a little bit more of variety to his striking and a little bit more volume. But I could see either guy putting the other away too. It's like Oliveira's gotten that good with his striking, no matter what he's throwing. It's very even, man. And I think the biggest thing is if, what happens with the grappling and if it even goes there, because it very well might not. Oliveira might, shake things up and just be like, all right, he's probably going to think I'm going to try because I did that in the last fight and everything. But nah, let's mix it up again like against Kevin Lee. And, most of the people on this run where he's been TKOing him and everything. So it's very tough to pick, but man, I said it after Oliveira won that he is going to be champion this year. So I guess I have to pick him. I have to take him in this one. He will find a way to finish Gaethje if this fight happens. As much as I love Gaethje, and I think Gaethje's the most exciting fighter of all time, I'm just on that Oliveira train after that last one, man. I got to stick to my guns.
Well, a respectable comment, sticking to your guns here with Oliveira being champ in 2021. In terms of this matchup, you covered most of it. Oliveira does have a couple of TKO and a KO, victory on this 8-fight win streak. He's got some power, and his striking has evolved to a level now that I don't think it's as good as Gaethje's. I think Gaethje has the advantage on the feet, but it's good enough that it could put Gaethje on the back foot and might be able to, provide him an entry for a takedown where if it gets to the ground, this is Oliveira's world. Right. I think Khabib really exposed, yes, it is Khabib, but, Khabib really exposed Gaethje's wrestling in terms of where the level of it is. Right. Let's not forget that it was a last minute replacement, but Al Iaquinta fought Khabib and was able to mostly survive it. Right. Ride him out for a full decision, had enough of the wrestling chops to prevent being submitted, really, push himself away. And he is a wrestler. He's a good wrestler. People forget about that. A lot of people want to shit out Al Iaquinta. I get it, but the dude has some skills. I think that going into this fight, it's going to be about that initial takedown. If Oliveira gets that initial takedown right away, or even within the first couple minutes, it's a done deal for me. And I think overall, I've got to give the edge to Oliveira here simply because of how smooth his transitions and his technique was against Ferguson. I mean, that's really what it comes down to is, yeah, exactly. And and Oliveira's not going to want to keep it standing, right? He's not going to, stand there and trade and bang with Gaethje all day. He's definitely going to be looking for any entry he can to take the fight to the ground. And I think eventually it'll get there and it's going to be Oliveira's world. Since he's come back up to lightweight, he has looked just phenomenal. It's possible. We've seen Oliveira be knocked out before. It's possible Gaethje lands a big shot and that's all over. And I'm not saying Gaethje doesn't stand a chance here, but I would definitely place my bet on Oliveira going into this fight.
Yeah, reasonable, man. And I think a big thing too for Gaethje in this one might be to get back to those patented leg kicks. We kind of forget, because he was knocking everybody out relatively quickly in this recent stretch, that one of the best leg kickers, out there. And he did try to impose some against Khabib, but not as heavily as maybe you would like. But again, safer to not do that against somebody like Khabib who's going to snatch that leg up. But I don't know, how much of a threat Oliveira will be by going for the leg on the defense of those. But I think it's always an interesting wrinkle when somebody who has such good leg kicks like Gaethje can really, involve those into his game plan and get back to those. And it's just always so fun to watch when he just throws them like in the clinch. You're like, what is this? You don't see that. So just a crazy guy. And I really hope the fight happens. I think it would be very fun. But of course, I want those title implications, like I said. And it's funny, I want to touch on that too, because you mentioned like Gaethje should still be in and around the title, like one fight away, maybe. It reminds me of a similar case to when, it's not super similar, but similar in the sense of Johnny Hendricks when he fought GSP and lost to GSP. Of course, practically everybody thought that he should have won that, but he got officially the loss and then fought for the title right after against Robbie Lawler and won it. So I equate it to that in just the sense that the champion retired, and then it's like, okay, who do we go to next? I guess you could also make a comparison to Jones when he lost his title because of the stuff he did outside, and then DC got to come in and replace him for, against Rumble and everything. So situations like that, it reminds me of that a little bit just because of what's happened with the champion. And of course, if Khabib was still around, I don't think Gaethje would be all too close because he lost very easily, would have to, work his way back up a bit more. But I think it helps him that Khabib he's retired, right? And not going to be the champion. I'm still believing that. So I think that's much better for him in terms of getting right back in that mix.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a great point you bring up, especially because we don't know for sure. You and I both believe that Khabib's going to stay retired, but if Khabib was around, then I think Oliveira should get the immediate title shot because he's already dominated Poirier, McGregor, and Gaethje. So at this point, it's kind of of course you would put Oliveira in, especially after that performance against Ferguson. I mean, you would have probably done Ferguson too, right? But it's one of those things where I think at this point, since we're assuming Khabib's going to be retired, yeah, Gaethje, that loss is kind of washed away, similar to how it's washed away with McGregor and Poirier, and everybody's kind of, fields wide open. So make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe, hit that notification button if you haven't already. If you have, we appreciate it. And let us know in the comments who you think is going to win this fight. If you think the winner deserves a shot at the title over the winner of McGregor versus Poirier, and how is it going to go down? Is it going to be a Oliveira submission? Is it going to be a Gaethje knockout? Is it going to be an Oliveira knockout? Is it going to be a Gaethje submission? Who knows? Anything's possible.
Another Oliveira decision.
Another Oliveira decision. Very possible. So definitely let us know how you think it's going to get done and who you've got in this one. Drake, anything to wrap this one up?
I guess the one thing that would make a bit of a clearer picture, I think, is if Hooker manages to take out Chandler, then that takes a guy out of this mix. Because if Chandler wins, he's definitely going to be in there, right? If Hooker wins, already lost to Poirier. So depending on what happens there, it makes a whole lot more ifs, right? I think if Chandler wins, right? So it's a little bit messy, but I think things are a bit clearer in terms of where the title will end up going if Hooker takes out a more likely option to be closer than him, right? So I guess that's the final note I would leave it with.
Yeah, great point there. I mean, that matchup between Hooker and Chandler, which serves, as the backup fight essentially too, to McGregor versus Poirier, that's in the mix too. It's exciting times at lightweight, as always, especially now that Khabib is retired. Who knows what's going to happen in 2021, guys? It's going to be crazy.
Everybody has a chance.